For decades, humanoid robots were just pure science fiction, stuff you'd see in the movies. But now, they're literally walking off the screen and into our factories, into our warehouses, and yeah, maybe even our homes. And here's the thing. This isn't some far-off, distant future anymore. It's a revolution that's happening way faster than anyone predicted, and it's about to reshape the entire nature of work as we know it. So just to grasp how massive this is, let's start with one number, $38 billion. Let that sink in for a second. That is the projected market size for humanoid robots by 2035, according to Goldman Sachs. Now, to put that into perspective, that's a six-fold increase from their own earlier estimates. This isn't some niche little market. This is an economic tidal wave. And, whenever there's a shift that's huge, you get two very different stories about what's going to happen. On one side, you have the World Economic Forum, and they're projecting a net gain of 78 million jobs globally. But on the other side, you've got McKinsey warning that automation could displace up to 800 million jobs. So what's the real story here? Are we on the verge of creating a world with incredible new opportunities? Or are we literally building our own replacements? That's the core question we're going to dig into. So why is this all happening right now, right? Why does it feel like this just came out of nowhere? Let's break down the different factors that have brought us to this exact tipping point. And hey, if you're thinking, is this just a bunch of hype? Well, take a look at this chart. This tracks how often the word humanoid gets mentioned in company reports and in the news. For years and years, it was barely a blip on the radar. Then in late 2023, it just explodes. The entire conversation has completely changed. And believe me, the business world is paying very close attention now. So what's causing this explosion? Well, it's really a perfect storm of breakthroughs, all hitting at once. First, the costs are absolutely plummeting, down 40% in just 1 year. Then you've got these incredible new AI models that give the robots the dexterity to understand what you're saying and handle objects they've never even seen before. Their battery life is now good enough for them to work 16, even 20-hour shifts. And of course, there's a flood of money, over $7 billion in venture capital, fueling all this rapid development. The bottom line is, the technology is finally here. Okay, so who's actually building this new robotic workforce? Because these are not just experiments in a lab anymore. We're talking about major corporations putting these robots to work on the factory floor today. Man, this field is getting crowded, fast. And we're not talking about small startups, we're talking about heavy hitters. Figure AI has its robots working shifts at BMW right now. Agility Robotics has their DigitBot moving totes around in Amazon fulfillment centers. Of course, Tesla's deploying its own Optimus bots, Apollos over at Mercedes-Benz, and 1X Tech is even going after security and hospitality. This is not theoretical, this is really happening. So what's the big deal about their shape? Why does being humanoid matter so much? Well, it's simple. Unlike those old factory arms that are bolted to the floor, a humanoid is designed to work in our world. It can walk through a doorway, it can climb stairs, and it can use the exact same tools a person would. And that means companies don't have to totally redesign their factories to use them, which you can imagine makes it way, way easier to bring them on board. All right, let's get to the question that's probably on your mind. What does all of this mean for our jobs? Is a robot going to be doing what I do for a living? Yeah, it's not as simple as robots just taking jobs. Think of it more like a massive reshuffling of the deck. Over on the left, you've got the jobs that are pretty repetitive, physical tasks. Assembly line work, warehouse packing. Those are definitely at high risk. But then look at the right. Look at these completely new careers that are opening up. For every robot out there, you're going to need technicians to fix them, specialists to train their AI, and designers to make sure they can work safely right alongside us. And when I say massive reshuffle, I mean staggering. This quote from McKinsey isn't even about job losses per se, it's about job transitions. We're talking about up to 375 million people. That's almost 14% of the entire global workforce who might need to switch what they do for a living entirely. That is a huge challenge for our education systems and for our economy. But history has a funny way of surprising us. Let's talk about the ATM. When it first came out, everyone said, well, that's it for bank tellers. But the exact opposite happened. The number of tellers actually doubled between 1970 and 2010. Why? Because the ATMs made it cheaper for banks to open more branches and the teller's job changed. It wasn't just about counting cash anymore. It was about providing higher value customer service. It's just a powerful reminder that the future is rarely a simple human versus machine story. Okay, let's pull back from the jobs debate for a second and peek under the hood of these machines, because building one of these things isn't the work of a single company, it's the work of this massive kind of hidden global ecosystem. So, at the end of the day, a humanoid robot really breaks down into two main parts. You've got the brain, that's all the AI software and the computer chips that let it see and think and learn. And then you have the body, which is all the physical stuff, the motors, the sensors, the batteries, everything that lets it actually move and interact with the world around it. And this is where it gets super interesting. To build that brain and that body, you need a huge supply chain. Morgan Stanley actually mapped it out, and they call it the Humanoid 100. It's basically a list of all the key companies that provide everything from tiny bearings and sensors all the way up to the foundational AI models. So the real takeaway here is that this whole revolution isn't just about a few famous companies. It's powered by this huge hidden network of hundreds of specialized companies all over the globe. And if we look at a map of where these companies are, a pretty clear picture starts to emerge. The majority of the firms that are confirmed to be in this humanoid supply chain right now are based in Asia, especially in China and Taiwan. That's just the geopolitical reality of manufacturing today, and it's going to be a major factor as this whole industry continues to grow. Okay, so we've covered the tech, the companies, the potential impact on jobs. Let's make this personal. What does this all actually mean for you? And what can you do to get ready? Well, on a big picture level, governments are starting to debate some pretty huge ideas. You hear about universal basic income, or UBI, which is basically about sharing the wealth that automation creates. Another idea is a robot tax, which would be used to help pay for retraining programs for workers who get displaced. These are massive, really complex debates that are going to shape our society for years to come. But look, you don't have to wait for politicians to figure things out. There are real steps you can take right now. First, be honest with yourself about your job's risk. If a lot of what you do is repetitive, start planning now. Second, focus on the skills robots just can't replicate, things like creativity, strategic thinking, emotional intelligence. Third, learn the basics of AI. You don't have to become an engineer, but just understanding the concepts makes you a collaborator, not a competitor. Fourth, think about those new jobs being created, like robot maintenance. And finally, if you can, build a financial safety net. It'll give you flexibility during this transition. And that brings us right back to where we started, to that big central question. This technology is here, it is not going away, and it's advancing at a mind-blowing pace. The choices we all make right now, as individuals, as companies, and as a society, are going to determine whether these machines become our partners, augmenting what we can do, or if they just become our replacements. The future isn't written yet. It's being built, one robot at a time.